Hi, my name is Peter Moe and I'm from Tourism Ireland's Nordic office in Copenhagen. Today we will be talking about stargazing in Ireland. And we have the perfect person with us here today to look at the stars with. Dr. Barry Lynn, astronomer at Ogham Dark Sky Park and Observatory. Now Barry, you're very welcome to our show today. Would you mind telling our listeners what a dark sky park is?
Sure. So a dark sky park is an area known for the exceptional quality of its nighttime sky. So effectively, it's a region that's free of what we call light pollution. This is scattered light from urban areas, misdirected up into the sky, that effectively it has the effect of masking the background sky and preventing us from being able to see things like the Milky Way, our own galaxy, and the fainter stars that are overhead. And so we're in a region here that is especially free of light pollution. And so we get these really spectacularly dark nighttime skies. And this has a lovely knock-on effect on the local ecology and really makes for just stunning views. Once the sun has gone down, we can see things here that you just simply can't see from urban areas.
So you can, just to probably put it into perspective, I've lived in a big city where I once, in the period of 6 months, I think I saw one star at one point. And that was just a really bright, either it was a star or it might have been something else. But for 6 months, I remember, and came as a shock to me. So this, I imagine, is the complete opposite, where you can just see stars abound and just really enjoy the nightlight. As to say,
Absolutely. So there's research that suggests that maybe 80% of the population across Western Europe and America have never seen the Milky Way. So this is our own galaxy. It appears as a kind of haze, like a bar of light above our head. And so it's really obviously visible here from our dark sky park. And all sorts of things that are completely masked by that light pollution that comes from urban areas. They're all really obviously visible to the naked eye here. So we're an accredited dark sky park. There's an organization called the International Dark Sky Association, or the IDA, and we went through the process of applying to become an official dark sky park, which means doing very quantitative measurements of exactly how dark it gets here and submitting those to the IDA so they could verify that our claims about the darkness of the sky here were true. And so, we submit readings every year. We're constantly monitoring and checking about encroaching light pollution. And a large part of our mission then is to kind of educate visitors and people in the local area about the importance of light pollution and really just to draw attention to the wonderful heritage that's above their heads. You know, this is the same night sky that all of our ancestors would have saw. And in this particular region, we're in just at the cusp of a mountain range called the Sperrins, one of the largest mountain range in Ireland, actually. And it's full of monuments going right back to the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age, some of which seem to be aligned with the night sky and with sunrises at summer solstice and equinox and things like that. So there's this
lovely dates.
Yes, absolutely. Things that would have been very important to kind of an early agricultural society. Essentially calendars lining themselves up with the sky and the rhythm of the seasons and of the sky itself. And so there's this lovely kind of heritage and lineage that we're drawing from of ancient people who've been looking at the sky in this area for millennia. And so we kind of see ourselves coming in their footsteps, essentially, and continuing that work, of paying attention to the night sky and trying to protect it and draw people's attention to it and educate them about it.
That sounds fantastic. But I'm just thinking, so dark sky park, that doesn't mean that the ground and everything is dark, because from what I've experienced walking around under the stars is simply that you get so much light from the sky, from the moon, from stars, from everything, that you can actually see where you're going. It's not that, it's just that you can't see the light reflected from the city, which
that's
gives
right.
Such a yellow hue. That's
right, that horrible kind of sodium haze that you see above urban areas. So you're right then, on particularly clear nights, there actually is some light that comes from the heavens, from the Milky Way itself. And definitely the moon is a big contributor to a natural light source. So really the times when it's most truly dark here is closest to what we call new moon. This is when the moon is over by the sun, and thus it's not present in our nighttime sky. So we actually just passed that day or two ago on
Okay,
Wednesday
cool.
evening. And those are the times when we really go to town here, when the sky is at its, its absolute darkest. When the moon is
Oh yeah,
up,
because then
it
you can better see the rest of the stars then.
exactly, the moon is almost a
Oh,
kind of natural light polluter. And so, yeah, we don't necessarily like it when there's a full moon because it drowns out a lot of the background sky just naturally. So there is that sort of rhythm through the month of the moon and its cycles. And yeah, and so at full moon, a full moon can cast a shadow on the ground.
yeah,
It
definitely
can be
can.
extremely bright. It's the second brightest thing in the sky, obviously. So really, it's new moon is when we most exploit our dark sky kind of status, and when we tend to have a lot of our what we call deep sky observing sessions, when we go looking for the very faint and distant objects that float by overhead.
It's fun because I would have thought if I were to book a date, I would have thought it would be best because of the full moon because it gives such a nice light outside. But you're right, you don't want that. You want to be able to see what's behind the moon. You want to be able to see, as in behind the light from the moon. That's.
The moon's a beautiful object as well, and
Hmm.
so it's not that like it spoils things. If it's up there, we'll spend a lot of time observing it and studying it and taking pictures and so on. And we do dedicated lunar observing sessions where the moon is the star of the show, if that's not
Okay.
a mixed metaphor. And so yeah, it's a great one to look at, and we do spend a lot of time on the moon. But really, we love that period called new moon when it's not there because then we can see the real true darkness, and it does get really exceptionally dark here. You can't see your nose while your eyes are adjusting. It's
Fair.
but so it takes 20 minutes for your eyes to develop true night vision. Your eyes, when exposed to darkness, start cooking up a chemical called rhodopsin, and this process takes a full 20 minutes to kind of reach its peak, and at which point then you're able to see very, very faint objects naturally. But any light at all will photo bleach the rhodopsin, and you have to start the whole process over again. So with that in mind, we only use red light around the facility and in our building here, and this is much
Oh,
more gentle on your eyes and is less likely to kind of to ruin your night vision. And we
okay.
advise then about using mobile phones and anything like the artificial light that could reset that whole process of building up night vision.
Interesting. So, actually, I didn't even know anything about that, but that makes so much sense then. Why you always think, oh, it's not that starry outside, but then once you've been there for apparently about 20 minutes, then it is starry outside because you have
Absolutely.
adjusted to the darkness.
Yeah, it takes a while for your eyes to kind of to adapt to it. So, like really humans are diurnal creatures, we're adapted to the daytime, and so night does take a bit of adjustment,
Fair enough.
you know.
But once you've then spent those 20 minutes outside adjusting to the darkness, do I then need a telescope or is it dark enough that I can see, for example, the Milky Way with the naked eye?
Yeah, absolutely. The Milky Way is definitely visible without any equipment at all from a dark sky park like here. So there is a kind of scale of what's visible according
Mm-hmm.
to light pollution and true darkness called the Bortle scale. And we're very far down it indeed, which means that you can see objects here, right down to what astronomers call sixth magnitude to get quite technical. So this is a kind of measure of the brightness of things in the sky. And
Okay.
ordinarily, objects at that limit are completely washed out by light pollution. But where we are here, your eyes are able to kind of really soak in and absorb details from things that just wouldn't be visible anywhere else. So you can see things like our nearest galactic neighbor, the Andromeda galaxy, an object
Really?
about 2.5 million light years away, and that's visible with the naked eye. The most distant thing you can see with your eye, really. And in fact, on a really good night, you can see the next most distant galaxy as well, a little fuzzy blob called Triangulum, which is even further again than Andromeda. But yes, things like the Orion Nebula are really, really obvious and clear. Star clusters like the Pleiades, yeah, all of these objects that would kind of be kind of tough to make out in a light polluted sky are very obvious and visible, including some of the fainter planets. So yeah, we get a nice display throughout the year of different planets that follow after the sun.
That all sounds so. I mean, I grew up in the countryside, and I have spent a fair share of my time out stargazing, but I don't think I've ever seen anything close to that. I mean, I'm thinking I've probably seen the Milky Way, but I nothing more than that, if even that, because
Well,
honestly I wouldn't know at that point.
sure. So this is a big part of what we're here for, is actually just to draw people's attention to what's up there, and to point out where things are, and to give a little explanation, helping people to kind of to realize what's there, and to kind of fill in the details about what these objects actually are. And so you mentioned telescopes and things like that as well. So we have a lovely range of telescopes here that we use for eyepiece observing. We've kind of got one of most of the different types of telescopes, so we're able to cover all the bases. And we have a lovely selection of binoculars as well. So that's a great part of my job, is kind of getting to set up a lovely range of telescopes and go hunting through the sky for various objects to show folks that, directly. And then up in our observatory where I'm speaking to you now, we have a very large and very high-end telescope with a camera mounted to its focal point.
Hmm.
And so we're able to use it then for imaging and astrophotography. So it's able to track objects in the night sky robotically and take pictures one after the other. And we do a trick called stacking, which is where we keep layering images on top of each other to draw more and more detail out. And so we can kind of turn that into like a live show, in a sense, like a little cinema, where objects are photographed until we're able to make out lots of detail and color over the course of maybe half an hour. And so this is a big part of a lot of our observing sessions, is this kind of live imaging that we do as well. Um, so
That sounds fantastic. I mean, it really
it
sounds
really
like
is.
a, well, sorry for the pun, out of this world experience.
Yeah, the atmosphere as well. Even just when you're in this lovely silent forest, the Milky
Yeah,
Way cutting through the heavens above your head. A great big piece of high-end technology sending down these images live for our viewers. And yeah, it's great. It's a lovely place to be, and it's great work to be involved in.
I can definitely imagine that. I mean, as you also said earlier, it's the night sky that, well, all of our ancestors grew up under. It's fantastically missing, I guess, from our daily
Sure.
lives.
And it's full of mythology, which is something that we like to chat about as well here. So I
Perfect.
obviously have a scientific background, as you mentioned earlier, but a lot of the staff here are just as interested in mythology and in archaeology and in what's known as archaeoastronomy, which is this connection of ancient monuments to the sky.
All right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so there's an awful lot to speak about, and even just on a pure aesthetic level, even if you're just interested in art and painting and kind of
Hmm.
creativity, just the views that you'll get are very inspiring. And obviously, the night sky has been hugely inspirational to artists and poets and so on down the years. So it all comes together. We're not just on one track, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It sounds like there is a like a fair lot to do at the park. But how do you experience it as a tourist? I guess when you go there.
Sure, there really is a lot to do here. So it actually began life as a mountain bike trail through a forest. And I've mentioned that we're close to a number of Neolithic monuments. So the most significant and closest are the Beckmore stone circles. So this is a Bronze Age monument that's only a few kilometers away. And so our main facility here, the Ogham building, where the observatory is connected to the Beckmore stone circles by what we call a solar walk. So this routes you through the kind of the mountainous terrain here in the Sperrins down towards the stone circles, and it's marked out in terms of distances of objects in the solar system. So it gives you a kind of sense of scale of how far objects are from the sun, with little informative posts as you make your way down to the stone circles. So yeah, also then the mountain bike trails that I've mentioned, and we have play parks. And then also we have a great wooden giant created by the Danish artist Thomas Danbo.
Yeah.
So there's a few of those dotted around the Sperrins, three of them all together. And so our one is called kyool-don, which is Irish meaning music and poetry. And he's holding a dream weaver, or a dream catcher rather, above his head. And so he's a big draw all of his own. And yeah, so it's a great area, dotted with all sorts of things to draw in tourists. And
Definitely.
then yes, there's walks, not just mountain bike trails as well through the forest. So it's a lovely area just to visit, even in the daytime, and just to take in the surroundings and the views and all of the kind of everything that the park and the nature has to offer. But
Definitely.
but
I
but
wouldn't
but
imagine it would be fun during the, well, it depends on, I guess, your preference, but I wouldn't do the mountain biking at night at least.
you do get some really dedicated folks with lights on their bikes actually who tackle the trails, So I love mountain biking myself, and I'm still to get up here on mine, so it's still on my to-do list. But yeah, I go for walks, and I kind of
Hmm.
I keep promising myself I'll.
Well, I guess your issue must be as well that you probably work during the night.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. I do a lot of late shifts when the skies are clear, So
Obviously, yeah,
um,
yeah, of course. And I'm guessing it gets quite late when you stay there as a tourist. So, how do you is there a place to sleep or?
so it can do. Just on that idea of it being late. Really, our peak season is midwinter, and it
Obviously.
gets dark here. Excuse me. It gets dark here at about 4:30 in the afternoon.
Okay.
We're very far north, as you can imagine. Maybe not quite as far as you guys, but getting there. So we're at about 55 degrees latitude. So our centre is open to 9 p.m. at weekends, and so that still leaves us a good 4 hours every evening in our peak season. But special events, like you say, will run on into the evening. The sky gets kind of more still and easier to observe later into the night. So yeah, things can run kind of into the wee hours, kind of after midnight. But even during the day, we're highly equipped to kind of provide astronomical observing, just looking at our nearest star, the sun. So we have solar telescopes, and I'm able to
Okay.
adapt the big telescope here in the observatory to look directly at the sun and take pictures of it. And we're able to observe all sorts of interesting phenomena on the solar surface, sunspots and faculae and limb darkening and all this kind of stuff. So very technical things, but just very interesting and very pretty to look at as well. So yeah, we're always ready to
And
go,
probably
kind of no
also the
matter.
only time you can really look at the sun.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah, this is it, but it is the only star that we can study in that kind of
Hmm.
detail. So it really is a very interesting object, and we do our best to kind of bring it to life. So we're ready to go with activities, both astronomical and related to the local area and its history and nature, all year round. And so we have a fairly varied event schedule that reflects that.
And am I mistaken in thinking there's also a you can also sleep there, or is that
Oh yes, but I beg your pardon. So you asked me about accommodation. So yes, nearby then there is a converted quarry that has been turned into a glamping pod. So it's called Sperrin View Glamping. And I think there's maybe 4 or 5 different facilities there. Great big triangular windows for views of the night sky. I think
perfect?
some of them have hot tubs and things like this. So
Oh,
that's a little
lovely.
yeah, that's a little private endeavor, and it's probably our nearest accommodation. But there are hotels then dotted all around the area in the nearby town of Dunamore, and in the larger town then of Cookstown, which we're only 6 miles away. So accommodation really isn't a problem. There are a lot of areas, like there are a lot of places that can put you up for the night should things run late, and you don't want to be making kind of long trips back to say Belfast or Derry or wherever you might be staying.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So, where in relation to, let's say, how far is it from, well, Belfast or Derry, or Dublin for that matter?
So distance-wise, we are about 55 miles from Belfast, about 40 miles from Derry, London Derry, and about 120 miles from Dublin. So maybe you'd like to do some unit conversion
Yeah,
there.
no, no, that's about I think 65 kilometers from Derry and 90-ish from Belfast, and I guess just shy of 200 from Dublin. So you can definitely get there easily.
Sure. And so, we are up in the hills here in the Sperrins. So the last few miles of your journey are on country roads, quite small, windy roads.
Fair enough. So
But
they
but
take a bit
but
extra.
But the vast majority of your journey is on proper, nice big air roads, as we call them, or motorway. So the journey really isn't too arduous. It's just that last little bit, and that's by necessity. We have to be in a slightly remote location to avail of the kind of the lack of light pollution and
I was gonna
distance from.
say, if there was a big motorway right across it, you wouldn't have any light.
That
Well,
would
you
be
would
a
have
problem.
loads of light pollution. Sorry, is what I'm
That
trying to say.
that would be a big problem. So yeah, by necessity, we have to be in a slightly rural area.
No, no, that makes complete sense.
But that's a big sales pitch, or that's a big sales point, I should say, for us. Is that we're in this beautiful kind of remote area where we get these like, super silent nights. Where there's
It's
you,
yeah,
you
very
can't hear it
undisturbed. Very. You can
really.
probably feel really. Probably you can. I'm gonna say it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you can probably feel very abandoned or alone, which is very nice. You can feel by yourself. You can feel,
Yes, you
that
can
you're
really get
here
back
and
to
that you're in
nature
the
here.
now. Yeah,
You can really get back to nature here. It's extremely quiet. It's extremely dark, and it can feel remote, although it really isn't all that far from
no,
urban
no,
centres and from nearby towns. But this is definitely the impression you can get here, and it's very soothing in a lot of ways.
definitely. It sounds fantastic. I mean, you've mentioned loads of things, but I guess, do you have a favorite constellation or experience? I mean,
Oh.
is it just the Milky Way that takes your breath away, or is it that you love to look at, I don't know, Orion's
Um,
belt or
I do love to look at Orion's belt, actually, yeah. And Orion is a wonderful constellation that's full of what we call deep sky objects. In particular, things called nebulae, which are these huge clouds of gas and dust in space from which stars form. So Orion is a really rich area to kind of observe in, and there's things that are visible without any equipment, like the Great Orion Nebula that's just below the belt. So
really?
it really is one of my favorites, actually. Another one I like, and it's quite close by to Orion, is the constellation Taurus.
Hmm.
So this is one of the zodiac constellations, and it's visible in the wintertime, and it contains a number of really pretty star clusters like the Pleiades and the Hyades, but also a supernova remnant called the Crab Nebula, which is the remnants of a massive star that exploded about 1,000 years. Well, the light from it reached us about 1,000 years ago, and we now see it as this kind of tangled ball of different colored gas, and it's just between the horns of Taurus is the bull, so it's just
Mm.
between the horns of the bull. So those two are really pretty, but also then the constellation Cygnus, which looks like a kind of cross in the sky. Some people call it the Northern Cross. It's very visible right now in the summer, and a bright star within Cygnus comprises what we call one of the summer triangle stars, the three very bright stars that you see in the summertime. And the Milky Way basically runs right along behind Cygnus, essentially, and so it's a lovely part of the sky, and it's rich with objects to observe as well. But really, the constellations change, as you know, throughout the seasons.
Yeah, of
So
course.
so for every season, I've got a different one that I like. Yeah.
Okay, okay. To be honest, I wasn't even counting on me hitting correct with just saying Orion's belt. That was
Oh,
a
Ryan's great. Yeah, no, no, you're absolutely right. And it's one that a lot of people can spot because of those three very close together stars that make up the belt.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think a lot of people have some experience of spotting it.
I
One
guess
I
I guess
didn't mention
my
is the plough.
yeah.
Oh, yes. So the Plough it's what we call a circumpolar constellation. It's up all year round. It never goes beneath the horizon, and it's the one that we would use to find the North Star, Polaris. But the Plough, because of where it is, it's dotted with other galaxies, a bit like our own Milky Way. So it's a
Yeah, yeah.
great one to kind of to observe with because you see all of these different spiral galaxies. Some of them, tens of millions of light years away. So that's another really, really interesting part of the sky.
Happens to be my favorite actually. Not,
Ah,
I was
nice.
just about to say it. It has a different name here where I'm from. It's Carl's Wagon.
Carl's Wagon.
Carl's phone. It might be. It's difficult to translate, but it's. I think it's the farmhand's wagon.
Ah, yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's it. The plough. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, that's really interesting. This is it. It's fascinating that each culture has its own take on these patterns in the sky, and a lot of their own stories and mythology and interpretations of what they are. So we do like to mention all of these different perspectives that different cultures have about what's overhead, because we do get so many international visitors, and it's nice to kind of to flag some of these things. So that's something for me to go and read up on more, is the Danish constellations and mythology.
Well, I mean, don't take my word for it though. It's all ancient meanings anyway.
Sure,
So it
absolutely.
might mean something different, but that's my best guess for it because
Yeah, yeah.
it's what we would use to find, as you say, the North Star.
Yep, that's it. The two pointer stars at the end of it that,
Yeah,
that take you right up to Polaris.
exactly. Actually, I have another question. So, why is it called the Ogham Dark Sky Park and Observatory? What's
Yeah,
with the Ogham? That doesn't sound
sure.
like an Irish name, I
No, you're
think.
right. So it actually has its origins within Hinduism, in which Om is a sound that people meditate on, and it's the sound of the universe. So I think that was kind of the fundamental inspiration, was this idea
The
of
sound of the
a
universe.
universal sound. But then also the letters themselves have a nice typography. So the letter O, the circle, reminds us of the planets, of the stone circles, the aperture of a telescope, and then the letter M resembles the nearby mountain peaks and the tree line,
Oh
and
yeah.
so there's a nice suggestiveness to the letters themselves. And then finally, there's a little link to what are known as Ogham stones, Ogham. These are
Okay.
stone monuments covered in ancient Celtic letters that look a lot like kind of Norse runes, actually. So there's an Ogham stone very nearby, and so that kind of gave us yet another local link to the landscape. So it's a lovely suggestive word, that kind of combines a lot of the things we're interested in here, astronomy, archaeology, nature.
Yeah, it quite nicely encompasses everything. Well done to whoever figured that one out.
Yeah, yeah, it's a nice bit of branding, absolutely. Um,
And but I guess you mentioned the OM stones. So, do you have any other Irish words or sayings you might want to share?
well, yeah, actually, one that comes up a lot that's mentioned on our tour is the name of the forest here. So it's been anglicized into Dava, but the Gaelic
Dava,
word Dabhach
Dabhach.
actually means a cauldron or bowl. And this
Oh,
is a description of the landscape that we find ourselves in here. It's the reason why we're so free of light pollution, actually, is that we're in a
in a bowl.
depression
Yeah.
yeah, we're in a kind of bowl in the landscape, surrounded by mountains with dense trees. And so we're shielded from the nearby towns and their light pollution because of the lovely sort of topography of the area that we find ourselves in. So that's Davach, the Gaelic word.
That's fantastic. You've safe to say you have rounded everything up in a nice little bow, or tied everything up in a nice little bow. I have to say. So I only have one final question for you. So that is, where or how can our listeners get in contact to find more about Dark
Sure.
Sky
So,
Park?
thanks. So we have our own website. That's omdarksky.com. And on there, you'll find all of the contact information you need to get in touch with us, to make bookings, to reserve your places on our tours, on our various events. There's a What's On section, which is our kind of itinerary of events that will be coming up. There's an astronomical calendar on there that will tell you what's happening in the night sky. And
Oh,
yeah,
useful.
it's
That's
it's
good to know, though, for booking.
yeah, absolutely. And so there is, and we're forever working on it, adding new features and so on. So what's planned actually will be an all-sky camera that's taking views of the night sky live. And hopefully we're going to have a page that you'll be able to log into and see those images in real time. So that should be just a lovely thing, to kind of a little resource to offer to people, to
Yeah,
show them
a
just
good
what we're.
kind of preview for your trip to.
Exactly, exactly. And great for seeing meteor showers and looking at the Milky
Oh
Way and
yeah,
live and all sorts of things like that. So that's
and
yet to
I'm guessing
come.
you can plan quite far ahead, considering I'm guessing not much is going to change in the night sky.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you can see for the entire year at the moment on our astronomical calendar what's planned and what's coming up, and so we'll be doing different events around those. And yeah, so just drop us a line and we'll do our best to facilitate. And we look forward to seeing all your listeners coming over to see us soon, and hopefully spending the evening or the day entertaining you and introducing you to the landscape and to the sky above our heads here.
That sounds fantastic, Barry. I have to say thank you very much. You've got me, well, envious of your lovely, lovely skies that I miss. I really do miss looking at the stars. So I definitely think I'll have to go.
Oh, absolutely, Peter. You'll be more than welcome. So hopefully we'll see you here at some point soon,
Thank you,
And
Barry.
thanks again for your time.